There are stories that stay with you, not because they make you feel good, but because, by the end, you feel dirty just for having gone along for the ride. You start out rooting for someone, only to end up despising them, repulsed by every choice they make. And yet, if you look closely, the real horror isn't on the page. It's in the mirror. Welcome to the hidden perspective, where we dig beneath the comforting illusions and ask, why do we love to loathe the protagonists we once admired? Why do their betrayals and breakdowns fascinate us? And, most chillingly, how different are we really? Let's begin with this. Everyone wants to believe they know themselves, that there's a border between the hero and the villain, a line you'd never cross, a self that would never betray. But what if literature's most loathed protagonists are simply a twisted reflection, showing us who we might become under the right or wrong conditions? What if the person you hate at the end of the story is just a few choices away from the person you are? The hidden psychological problem. It feels safe to draw lines, villain versus victim, protagonist versus antagonist. The mistakes only belong to someone else. But the deepest psychological threat in these stories is how easily the border blurs. The protagonist's descent isn't a single, catastrophic fall. It's a series of quiet, defensible choices, little rationalizations, and moral compromises that snowball. Every time, our natural tendency is to think, I'd never do that. But the truth? The call is coming from inside the house. Self-deception isn't a glitch, it's a standard feature. The mind has an endless capacity to justify, to sweep away red flags, to construct narratives that make us the misunderstood hero, even as we edge closer to the abyss. Why people fall into it? So, why do people fall so spectacularly from the heights of sympathy to the depths of contempt? It's not because evil is seductive. It's because self-deception is effortless and terrifyingly human. The protagonists you despise by the end don't wear the mask of the monster. They wear your face, your doubts, your ambitions. They begin as sympathetic, even admirable. But slowly, the rot sets in. A fear of losing status, the shame of being ordinary, the hunger to be adored, the frantic chase to prove oneself, again and again. Every betrayal, every half-truth, every moment of cowardice is just slightly outside your comfort zone. The reason their downfall is so satisfying, so horrifying, is because it whispers, this could be you. Under stress, stripped of comfort, maybe you'd reach for the same justification. What this reveals about human nature. What does this reveal about us? That human nature is not a fixed trait. It's a state of tension, a negotiation with darkness that never fully ends. People crave stories of downfall because they externalize our own, unspoken fear, that goodness is slippery, that identity is fragile, that one day the gap between who we pretend to be and who we are might snap. That inside every hero is the seed of a villain, watered by stress, watered by loneliness, watered by the desperate need not to lose everything we've built. Shame plays a role. Status anxiety sharpens the edge. But the real driver is the internal conversation most never admit to having. How far would I go if I knew no one would ever find out? A deeper layer, how we rationalize the light into darkness. Here's the chilling layer most ignore. It's not just about the protagonist's spiral. It's about how we, as watchers, secretly enjoy it. Schadenfreude, yes, but deeper, we crave the moral distance. We want to believe we could spot the warning signs. Yet, when a protagonist starts justifying their betrayals, invoking the greater good, blaming others, painting themselves as a victim, we nod along, recognizing those very patterns in ourselves. It's familiar territory. You ever tell a white lie to keep your image clean? Ever cut a corner, just once, because everyone does it? Edit your memories to feel a little better about yourself? The incrementalism of self-betrayal isn't only a literary device, it's a psychological blueprint. Each time we watch another character rationalize themselves into the abyss, we're learning how that script is written and how easy it would be to follow. Why we love to watch them fall. Why don't we look away when people we once admired plummet downwards? The truth is more disturbing. We're drawn to those falls because we fear they're inevitable. Watching another's collapse feels like buying a kind of moral insurance. If they can fall, maybe I'm safe, maybe I never will. Or maybe we just want proof that even the mighty are faking it. We want to see the cracks, the trembling hands, the shame flickering behind the eyes. We want to exhale and say, at least I'm not like that. But that pleasure is tainted with recognition, with suspicion, with the echo of our own worst impulses. Their disgrace is the permission slip for our own anxieties. Every time a protagonist sells out their soul, it feeds the urge to point and look away from ourselves. The true cost: identity, alienation, and the mirror. But the highest price isn't paid by the character on the page. It's paid by the reader or the watcher who glimpses a piece of themselves in the chaos. There's a special kind of loneliness that comes from realizing how thin the mask really is. Psychologists call it moral injury, the break between what you believe you could do and what you actually do under pressure. Most people don't unravel in a single, epic mistake. Most people erode in private, bit by bit, through small acts of self-betrayal that eventually distance them from everyone, including themselves. Status, adoration, and ego become tantalizing prizes, but they demand ever greater costs. The more you feed your public persona, the more you starve your sense of self. By the end, what's left isn't a villain or a hero. It's someone completely isolated. The hatred readers feel is often an unconscious grief for their own lost innocence. The twist? The story never ends on the last page. It lingers inside, urging us to ask, what role are we really playing? A deeper, uncomfortable truth. Here's what no one wants to admit. The line between hating the fallen protagonist and becoming them is razor thin. You're not immune because you're self-aware. Insight doesn't stop temptation. In fact, awareness of your flaws may only deepen the shame, the anxiety of being exposed. Because everyone has a shadow self, hidden behind the polite social mask, waiting for just enough stress, enough loneliness, enough wounded pride to break free. We despise these characters at the end because they have dared to do what we privately fear we might. That's why their stories haunt us longer than triumphs do. It's not justice we crave, it's a kind of confession. A dark, collective exhale. If even they can fall, perhaps I can forgive myself for how close I've come. Conclusion. So, the next time you close the book, disgusted by the protagonist you once admired, ask yourself, did you hate them because they were monstrous? Or because they were just a little too familiar? The face you loathe most is sometimes your own, refracted just enough not to recognize. The hidden perspective is never comfortable, but it always tells the truth. No mask lasts forever. Sooner or later, the story demands to know, who are you, really, when the final page turns? And if you're honest, you might realize, the scariest character was never on the page at all.